Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, and welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Jenny Fenig. Jenny Fenig helps you remember who you truly are, a magic maker. Her work focuses on empowering creative women entrepreneurs to increase their confidence, impact, money, and time freedom by mixing modern with ancient practices. She is the founder of Magic Makers Coach Certification, which trains professionals in the craft and business of intuitive coaching. Jenny is also the author of Get Gutsy and was named a Silver Stevie Award winner for Coach of the Year. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Miss Jenny Fenig. Hey, Jenny, how are you?
Hi there. I'm doing so well. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, I'm excited to learn more about your modern, mixing the modern with the ancient practices. That's the part that caught me the most of it. I was going through your whole bio and learning about you. So I'm like, ooh, this is going to be nice and interesting. Lots of new golden nuggets will be dropped tonight from you.
Yes.
So exciting. So Jenny, before we move on to anything, please just tell the listeners a little bit more about who you are and what else that you do just beyond outside of your business of Magic Makers. Tell us a little bit more who you are.
Yeah, well, I am a mother of three. I have been married for over 15 years now. We homeschool our three kids, which was never something I thought I would ever do. And we were doing this pre-COVID. I know a lot of people have joined our ranks this year. It's been a wild year for sure. But that was something... I think my life has been filled with lots of curveballs and twists and turns. That was something that happened 4 years ago with my oldest child when he just would not go back to his school. I mean, he just would not, no matter what we tried. Yeah, it was, after a few weeks of this, I realized there's a technical term for this. It's called school refusal, and many kids deal with it. My son is one in that category, and no matter what we tried, he just wasn't open to that school or a different school. He was very clear he wanted to be homeschooled. So after more weeks of oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? This is nuts. I don't even see how it's possible. Who wants to do? My husband and I just surrendered. We said, you know what? There's a reason for this. We'll just figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. And so it's been a few years now, 4 years to be exact. We now homeschool all three. And what's fascinating is, at first, I really didn't tell, people publicly that I was doing that because I was just so nervous about it. And I really thought that I wouldn't be taken seriously as a businesswoman if they knew, well, then she homeschools her kid. Because how do you do that? How do you hold all that? And eventually I started sharing it, and I had clients wanting to work with me because of that. They were fascinated by it, or they were doing it too, or they wanted to do it too. And this year I've been hired by a corporate wellness company. It's just kind of this interesting thing that happens in life when you stop resisting life.
Right.
And instead surrender and go, okay, maybe I don't understand this. Maybe I'm really overwhelmed by it and I'm feeling all the feelings, but okay, I'm going to trust it even if I'm not really grasping it yet. And so, I was hired by a corporate wellness company to be a speaker for their clients, and that has just exploded this year in terms of growth. I deliver multiple presentations a week to companies, employees at companies all over the country, and my two main topics, one is homeschooling and work balance. So I just get such a kick out of it. The thing that I was freaked out by, hid, finally said, okay, well, we'll figure it out. Now I'm speaking to major organizations around this with my lessons learned and tips. And then the other topic is all around time mastery and self-care. Because in order to do whatever it is, you've really got to master time. And I think this year especially, we've all been just humbled and brought to our knees with all the changes and everything else. And so That's something I practiced for a long time, and that's kind of a piece of that modern with ancient practices. It's using these tools that we have to harness the energy of time, and then also tapping into some of those ancient practices around mindfulness, yoga, whatever your spiritual practices, your movement practices. When I was still in corporate, I spent the first 10 years of my career living in New York City, working at various companies there, and I was super stressed out. I mean, I was in really interesting positions, but very overwhelmed. Like, I just didn't have a lot of time outside of work. And what I did have, I lived it up. Don't get me wrong, but as I journeyed forward and I really started kind of examining this whole thing, like, okay, this is this work thing, and how long am I supposed to do this for like this? I don't know. I'm going to make it. I was only at that point, I was just turning 30, and I'm kind of on the cusp of, am I going to do the kids thing? Am I doing that or am I not? And I don't see how all that can work. And I had been practicing yoga for about 6 years at that point, and I got this download to go deeper and go through a yoga teacher training. Not sure what that was going to do or where it was going to take me, but that has absolutely changed my life, just how I show up and the tools that I have and the tools that I teach. So, those are some of those ancient practices that I've discovered and everything. So that's kind of a long answer to Mama 3, homeschool, wife. We live in the country. Now we live in Western Massachusetts. It's beautiful. I moved out of New York 10 years ago. Also a very kind of hard decision of, is there life outside of New York City, which sounds ridiculous to say, but when you get used to a place, you have a hard time imagining that there could be another way.
Right.
And there's always another way. And so that's been a big kind of discovery for me, is just to stay open. You could come up with a plan, but the plan that is really for you is going to be better than the one that you could come up with your logical mind.
Right. Well, I'm sitting here, I've been listening to you, but the thing that keeps screaming in my head and comes out is you were the one kicking on them one end and your son was kicking on the other end. You guys were screaming and kicking at each other, so to speak. Yeah. So it's just amazing how one incident changed everything, your whole dynamic of your family, the dynamic of your business and who you were as an individual, as far as, this is not something I really want to do, but now we're forced into having to do it. And then here you are several years later, now you're telling everybody else how to do it. And as you said, and I've said the same statement before, where we have literally in this year have been brought down to our knees and have had to become more humble about everything in our life, and taking the opportunities to rethink everything and what we're doing and how we're doing it, and how this pandemic has affected us in certain ways that we would have never had thought about. And so those days of not wanting to spend time with your family because you're too busy to do A, B, C, and D, you've been kind of forced into doing that, forced into doing that self-assessment of who you are and what do you really want to be when you grow up type attitude, and all types of things. So here it is, all these little things that you've accomplished in these last several years, I'm sure, and even beyond that, prior to you jumping into business, because like you said, you were a big executive out in New York and so forth. So here now you have those, as you call it, this magic that has come together. So all this magic that you've learned for yourself, you're now obviously have been training professionals to bring out those same little particles of magic and to bring it into one. So talk a little bit about what Magic Makers does.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I want to make this point that, when I started my business, I didn't say, and it's all about magic makers. Like, that was not, I just didn't see that yet. You start where you are, and I want everyone to really get that, because I know we probably have listeners who are in the creation stage. You're just in the incubation phase. You're in the whole, do I want to do this? How would I do this? What do I call it? What is it? What is this thing? And that's all totally normal. So it's been through lots of evolutions where I have put work out there, taken it as far as I feel it's meant to be taken, and then I evolve into whatever is next. And it was several years ago that I really started opening up to this whole idea of what I call co-creating with the cosmos. And that's where I got very familiar and intimate with the lunar cycle and the impact that that lunar cycle has on me and has on my energy and has on the women I serve. Because this energy of the moon, for instance, it's something that can be tracked across the board no matter where you live, because the moon is the same wherever you are. So when we're looking up in the sky, you see what everyone else is seeing. I just think that's so cool. And so I really started playing with this. I was doing a lot of research, study, inquiry, and looking at how does this impact me. And then once I started seeing that, then I would offer it up to my clients as a framework to embody and to play with. And so we would go through these different phases of the moon, the new moon, the first quarter moon, the full moon, and the last quarter moon. And if this is new information for you all who are listening, just do some digging here. You know, most calendars have the moon phases represented in the calendar. There's a reason for that. It's because the moon has so much wisdom. And so that was really the makings of this Magic Makers method, where you really tune into that different energy at the various phases of the moon. You're also in tune with what's happening in your body. And as women, our bodies are on a similar cycle as the moon. And so, you know, a lot of women have had cycles in their life. The cycle, a menstrual cycle, is around the same number of days as the lunar cycle. And of course this fluctuates because all women are different, but at its core, it's very similar. And so I just became mesmerized by this, and I decided that I wanted to weave this into my programs, the way that I was coaching, the way that I was teaching, and I wanted to create a community for women who were open to this kind of living, this kind of conversation, to be able to come together to get regular, coaching, training, connection with other women who are vibing like they're vibing. And then we took it a step further, and I evolved a coach training program that we had for several years into this umbrella, and it became Magic Makers Coach Certification. So that's relatively new in the grand scheme of things. It was under a different name and a kind of different design before. And, again, my whole journey has been about saying, okay, this way it's been done is complete. Now it's time for it to move into what it's meant to be now and next. And so I realized as well that not only did I love working with coaches, I wanted to specifically focus on intuitive coaches because there's something that's so magical, for lack of a better word, around working with your intuition. It's not just about living in your head and coming up with this very logical, that of course is the clear answer here. It's making sure that we don't disconnect from our own body and from our own place of wisdom and truth, which for many women, we weren't taught to do that. We were kept very separate from that. And we grew up in a masculine structure that doesn't value intuition, or didn't in the past. And I feel like things are changing there. So, that's really the whole Magic Makers umbrella, is about working with your intuition, working with the cosmos, working with nature. I do a lot of teaching and talking about, and the corporations that I'm talking to now, I weave this in as well, which is very gratifying because I know everyone's hungry for this. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, you're working in, a more traditional environment. We're all feeling something right now, okay? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of overwhelm. There's a lot of, where is this all going? Oh, my goodness, this is kind of crazy. Are we there yet? Is it done yet? Okay, and so when we remember that we are made up of various elements, fire, water, air, earth, we are, like every body is. The earth is made up of those elements. And when we start feeling disconnected, it's often because we've disconnected from those elements in nature. So I'm a huge believer, and this is definitely a piece of kind of the Magic Makers viewpoint and that Magic Makers method, is working with seasons, working with nature, and then connecting deeply with the elements. When you do, no matter what's going to come your way, and there's going to be hard stuff, I mean, that's just part of being human, you'll feel like you can handle it because you have deeply grounded into your own truth. And, you know, you can take cues from what you see in nature. I mean, nature it's intense, and I think we can forget that sometimes when we get curveballs thrown at us, like, how could this happen? You know, I can't believe it. Oh, my goodness, yesterday we had a huge storm here. It felt like it just came out of nowhere. Like, all of a sudden the sky is dark and it gets so windy, and, you know, we had a power surge here. A lot of our community lost power. They still don't have power. And, you know, a horrible thing happened. We belong to a golf, tennis, and pool club, you know, in the summer months here, and the golf pro was killed. He was on the golf cart, I think, clearing off the property or, you know, whatever, making sure people were safe, and a tree fell on the golf cart. Yes, this just happened yesterday. I'm still kind of like, whoa. And it was literally that storm. It must have lasted 15, 20 minutes, you know. It was just this intense burst of energy. You know what I mean? And so when we can take cues from nature, we can see there's things that are hard and unfair, and they're just going to come in and just change things so quickly. I think we can be better prepared for life.
Exactly, because we're definitely getting all of that right now. Those changes that people weren't prepared for, don't know how to handle it. Like you said, everybody's under a lot of stress because they're just not. Nobody could have ever anticipated this. And even if the feelings were there, and obviously there are people who knew that it was coming, but at the end of the day, for those who didn't know, and if those feelings were there of that uneasiness or something's not right, people won't always listen to their intuition. So, you know, what you're teaching people to dive into more, we definitely need to do more of that. But then once you do understand there's something there, it's learning from it and trying to figure out the answers versus just saying, oh, that's just nothing, you know, or that can't be happening, or why is this happening? It's kind of like that consistent circle that, you know, you're like a rat on a wheel that just constantly keeps coming back to you. And there's a reason for that, because that intuition is very important. And the thing that I liked that you were saying earlier, and you were talking about when you come into business, obviously, you know, we know you just didn't jump right in and Magic Markers was there overnight. But I liked how you said that you would take what you were working on currently and you took it there. And when it was done, it was done. I think a lot of times when people start out on business, they believe in so much what they're doing that they don't know when to stop and say, I've completed this journey. Now let's move to the next portion of the journey. And I love how you've used that impact, because I think that's important for people to not feel like they're not failures because they've stopped at that point. It's about growth. And so you're using those capabilities and you're trying to teach people and your information about the moon. I would have never in a million years thought about putting the 2 and 2 together, especially when it comes to women. And obviously you're talking about cycles and so forth. I'm thinking, wow, that is a really interesting concept. So when you're looking at that concept and that side of it, so for a woman whose their nature has stopped for them because of certainties, how does that continued feeling of cycles go? Now, I know for a woman, even though you may not physically have that cycle, your body still feels like it's going. How would women like that handle that circumstances?
Great question. Well, that's where you become one with the moon. I mean, literally, I want everyone. You always should know what phase the moon is in. You shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I know it is a full moon. That's not the way you're going to live anymore. Okay, like being a magic maker, and everyone here can really practice this, is to know what is happening out there. When you know what's happening out there, you can have a deep connection with what's happening inside of you. And so we want to get communion with those energies. So you could see, okay, well, and again, you can track this in your calendar. This is something we do. We have a moon cycle magic tracker, and our clients can download that, and they can go through. And I've heard so many, and I practice it myself. I literally have my tracker right in front of me right now. Well, start at the new moon. Okay, the new moon is that fresh slate. That's when, when we used to cycle, or maybe you still do, that's the energy of when you are menstruating, when you're on your period. And so for a lot of women, it's like, leave me alone.
Right.
Leave me alone. Just be quiet. I want to go into my red tent and just everyone leave me alone. And so that's when we're resting, we're renewing, and we are receiving what I call ultravision. And so you're getting these downloads, you're getting these insights for what is the best use of your energy and your focus and your time for this next cycle. And the cycles are around, 28, 29 days. And they fluctuate because there are 13 moons in a year.
Oh,
there's
wow.
12 months in a year, but there's 13 moons in a year. And so this is also a remembrance that, we grew up thinking 13 was an unlucky number. It was a bad number. It was a scary number. Okay, well, it's because it's associated with a strong female. And so throughout history, strong women have been feared because they can't be controlled. They're harder to control. And so I feel like a big piece of my mission is reclaiming the number 13, reclaiming what it is to be a strong female, and really working with nature. And so you can just really say, okay, the new moon is here. I'm going to take some time and really plug in to how I'm feeling and to see what's coming up for you. Like, where do you want to put your energy? You've got the next cycle ahead of you. What would you love to see happen? And you know that you've got to do your part. It doesn't just say, well, I'm going to cross my fingers and hope it happens. Like,
right.
You've got to do your part. And so at the new moon, you're setting your intention for how you're going to show up for this lunar cycle, and then you're going to establish some goals, okay? And then, boom, about 7-ish days later, it's the first quarter moon, and that's the energy of growth, action, and commitment, okay? And so you'll then look back on what was the intention that you set about a week prior, and what were your goals? How are you doing on that? Where do you need to double down on your efforts, and what shifts do you need to make? Okay? It's one thing to write something down, but it's another thing to actually action it,
right.
to follow it, to honor it. And then about a week later, 7 days later, it'll be that full moon. You look up in the sky, and you're like, oh, my gosh, this is amazing. Look at that gorgeous glowing ball. And that's when you're in your fullest power. Okay? And so that's when, when you are connected to a menstrual cycle, that is those few days in your cycle when you're ovulating. And for many women, they could conceive a child, okay? And so it's that energy of you just got it going on. Everything you touch turns to gold. You got to go for it. You got to go for it. You got to go for it. And so you're going to just rock those full moon vibes. You're going to reach out. You're going to send that email. You're going to pitch this thing. You're going to go for it. You're going to make that offer. You're going to put your program out there. You're going to lead this awesome event, like whatever you're going to do. I do a lot with the full moon, and I really play with it because women especially are super influenced by the moon. So that's full moon energy. And then about a week later, last quarter moon, that's when you look up and you see just the left part of the moon glowing, okay? And that's the energy of letting go to rise higher. So at that point, you've seen some things come into fruition. You have seen some of your goals be made real. And then you've seen other things not happen. And maybe you realize, you know what, that really wasn't a right fit for me. Or, hey, it just needs more time. Some seeds don't grow that fast. You've got to nurture those things over months, over years. But if you're diligent and you're consistent about it, and it's really aligned with your highest and best good and how you're meant to contribute and what you're meant to receive, then that eventually will come to pass. So that's for everybody. Really honoring that moon cycle will get you in touch with your magic and will allow you to feel a deep connection to nature. And as I mentioned, with all this intensity and hard stuff happening this year, it is so helpful to come into communion with nature and to just look around and you say, okay, I have big trees where I live. I look up and I go, that tree has been here so long. I mean, so long. And it's not freaking out about, it's losing its leaves right now because it's fall, or it just is. It just is, and it trusts the cycles of life. Everything's cyclical. Seasons are very cyclical. We know after fall, winter's going to come. It's not like all of a sudden summer's going to be here. No, winter's going to come, and then spring's going to come, and, down the line. So that's a huge takeaway is and it honestly will require a lot of people to re-examine their relationship with technology because, listen, I love technology, but I don't love it enough where it takes over my life and I can't get outside and I forget how it is to not be on tech. Because some of my best experiences are had when there's zero technology involved. So everyone's got to really look to see, sources of stress or sources where you feel like super anxious or all you're doing is comparative scrolling. You're just scrolling and comparing your life to everyone else's. Get out and just enjoy and go create the things that you want to create. Go say the things that you're here to say. Trust that not everyone's going to like you or what you're working on or anything, but that's just normal.
Right,
you can't let it. You can't let it hold you back.
Exactly, but like I said, people take it so personal. They're too busy looking to the lens of everybody else's lives instead of building their own. And so, the things that you're saying is absolutely correct. And I'm after we get done with this conversation, I'm going to go read about the moon now because you got my mind going. I'm thinking to myself, I think we just had a full moon the other night. I was looking up the window and said, we have a full moon out here. So interesting, very interesting. The concept is amazing. And it's just amazing how we don't think about connecting the nature with us as human beings, even though, like I said, we may have that intuition and we already know what's going on in our bodies, but just not knowing how to handle it all and figure out, where is this coming from? And a big part of it is we don't know because it's because of fear. Most people are very fearful of the unknown, just like everything that's been happening today. And it's not the first time we've ever had, major things happen in our country, in our world, in our own community, in our own backyards. But it just seems that it's flipped everybody to a point where you do have to sit back and wonder and do have to sit back and think more about what is best for you. I think in this year so far, it amazed me how many people I have seen retire and said, I've had enough. I need to live my life more because everything around us is making us so much more aware. I'm sure everybody has known somebody, whether they're in their family, who has lost their loved ones during this time frame. And if this doesn't make you sit back and just think what's most important in life, I don't know what is and what will.
Oh yeah.
I really don't. So, the things that you're saying is just eye-opening and refreshing to some degree because we do live in a world where we feel like technology is the only thing that's going to make us survive. And the reality of it, I think to some degree, it's kind of killing us, because every day you're sitting there, oh my gosh, I got a text or, ooh, who's saying this about my, feed, what's on my feed today, and not realizing that's not what brings people to you. It's who you are and how authentic you are and what you're doing within yourself and within your business is what really brings people to you. And you definitely are showing that authenticity. It's amazing just to listen to you talk. I could sit here forever. I was like, oh, I've learned a lot tonight. So for those who have listened, I'm like, for those listening, if you haven't heard these golden nuggets tonight, you have missed out. Oh my gosh, this has just been unbelievable conversation. So I just have a couple more questions for you. So Jenny,
sure.
I always ask my guests, if somebody was to walk up to you and they say, hey, I want to be in business, what advice would you give them?
You have got to go all in, and be willing to make invitations. Business is not just coming up with ideas and just thinking about the ideas. You got to implement. You got to implement, and you have got to be willing to let people pay you. And then when the money comes in, you need to know what to do with the money. All right? And this is stuff that took me a long time to figure out, and I'm still a work in progress. But for many, I've seen this just happen time and time again. They just think about it. They kind of put some stuff out there, but it's not consistent. And then they're worrying about what people are thinking, or they'll let one negative comment just derail them, which you cannot do. And then for lots of people, they won't put a price on it, and they won't think about, what are my costs to deliver that? Because there's always cost. And so I want everyone to realize too that if you price something at whatever your price is, $1,000, that is not fully yours.
Really?
You not get the $1,000 put into your checking account. Yes, it'll come into your account, but then you've got to have money for whatever expenses go into. You've got some overhead to run your business. You've got taxes, and we don't need to be afraid of paying taxes. That is our job. You can be smart about, how to, follow the laws regarding taxes. But, yeah, I mean, that was something that really took me some time because, as I earned more in my business, there were times when I would maybe get triggered by a price, like, oh, someone's going to pay me whatever the number was. Mm-hmm. And I realized that's not just for me. That's for my business. That's for my team. That's for the tools that I'm using, the technology, all of it. And so the purpose of your business is to turn a profit. Your purpose is whatever it is, okay? But the purpose of your business is to turn a profit. So don't neglect that or else you won't have a business for very long.
Well, that is excellent advice. I couldn't have said that better myself. Like I said, I've learned an awful lot this evening with you. So I'm sure there are many people who are listening and they want to know, how can I get a hold of Miss Jenny? Because there's just too much greatness going on over here. So Jenny, could you please share your information? And if you have anything new coming up that you would like to share with everybody, please do.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Well, my main home base is my website, which is my name, jennyfenig.com. So you can pop over there and just cruise around. I do have a free tool that could be useful for your listeners, kind of, in line with that time mastery concept, understanding how to amplify your results by doing less. And it's a very simple link for that, reclaimtimenow.com. reclaimtimenow.com. Our next class of our coach certification, Magic Makers Coach Certification, will happen March of 2021. We'll start kind of getting early enrollment kicked off for that in the next few months, I'd say. We just enrolled our class that started in September, and it's amazing. I just get such a kick out of, because let's just be real. When you have your own business, it's exciting, but it's scary.
Right.
It's scary because you don't know exactly who's coming in and who's going to sign up and all that. You take a huge risk, and every time I'm blown away. And you know what? It does not go the way that I think it's going to go.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I've designed it all in my head. But it always is what it's meant to be, and it keeps me really humble and hungry because I've got to show up. Like when I know I've done what I can do, I have done what I can do, I feel complete around that, Mm-hmm. And so, we'll have our next class kicking off soon, but we always have something going on. So if you grab the reclaimtimenow.com template, you'll be on our list. You'll know what we've got. I always have like free trainings, this thing, that thing. I mean, I love creating. I love serving. I love bringing people together for really powerful conversations. I just think I'll always do that. I don't know, how this business will continue to evolve as I evolve. I mean, I'm in my early 40s at this stage. I can imagine myself doing this kind of work forever. When people talk about retiring, I'm like, to do what?
Right.
I have lots of hobbies, but I have really created a lifestyle where I can build this in, and I think that's one of the awesome opportunities of our time, that we can work from home. We have this technology. You can decide, okay, I'm going to work with clients these certain days, and the other days I'm going to have open schedule and do some writing or do some interviews or whatever, and, continue to serve and continue to solve problems and connect with interesting people. That to me is, I remember my dad having the countdown for retirement, and he is now retired. He's happy to be retired, but I just don't see that right now. I see such an opportunity for all of us to just use these tools, and that'll be the final point I make, is to ensure, just on that technology piece, I did recently see that documentary, The Social Dilemma, which I encourage people to check out. But to ensure that you're using technology as a tool and you're not letting the tool use you.
That's actually a good statement. Yeah, and that makes sense. And I think that's what a lot of people's problem is, and that's part of the reason why they can't excel, is because they're not using the tool properly. Yeah. I mean, so there's always good and bad in everything that we have, and it just depends on how you handle it. And, technology has been fantastic. It's funny because 4 years ago when I originally started my business, my focus really was not the podcast. And we kind of talked a little bit about this before we came on. my focus was membership, and helping women and providing resources. And I still provide that information, but I wanted it all done in technology, and everybody thought I was crazy. It was, oh, no, nobody wants to do that. They want you to be in the room. And I said, okay, here, 4 years later, look at the world. So I was just 4 years early. Too early. So, well, not too early, but it was the thought process, understanding that, you have to realize you cannot always be everywhere all the time. And you have to learn how to make use of the resources that you have in front of you. And it was a joke for most people, but now we're all forced to make those changes, and make them for betterment, not for, for the worst of what you're doing. So yeah, you're spot on. And like I said, tonight's conversation has been amazing. And for those, again, if you've missed out, you will have the opportunity to go on and listen to the show, the replay, as often as you like. I'm on 13 different media platforms at this point. There's no reason why you can't go to iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to go. This is a show you need to definitely go back and listen to, because Jenny has dropped it down. I mean, this is one of those drop the mic nights for me. So like, I love it because it's just very interesting in learning and understanding the concepts of how, as human beings, that there's so many things that we just don't think about, and we're not in tune with our own selves. And I love it when I have a guest who can teach us how to be more in tune about who we are and how we use our intuition and the senses that we have, and provide it all within our personal lives as well as in our professional life. So I thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, Jenny. And I know that you need to get back to your family because they're waiting for you, but I do appreciate you spending some time with me this evening.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks again for having me, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. I send everyone so much love, and just trust that I know we're in a major challenge. But what I have come to realize is that challenges are temporary, and whatever it is that matters to you out there, whatever it is that you're building, that's the forever stuff. So focus on that. Take care of yourselves. We got to protect the asset. Ourselves, we are the asset, okay? And we're going to look back on this wild year that is 2020 and go, wow, we were there for that. We are literally redesigning the world right now. And, let's show up for it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate, again, you coming on this evening. And for everyone else, we are here every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and with another new guest. And I'm so excited about what we have coming next week. So just pay attention to all the promo that's coming out starting tomorrow. But until then, you can also re-listen. Like I said, you can go on iHeartRadio, Spotify, but you also go download our new mobile app, which is on Google Play, Your Resource for Success podcast. So you can listen to all the different interviews. There's been more than 180. So enjoy every single one of them. But again, enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.